Hi, I'm Laura, a 32-year-old department head at a company where everyone is driven. My life is a constant juggling act between being a mom to my lively 7-year-old daughter, Kelly, and managing the demands of my job. It wasn't always this way. I met my husband, Jacob, at this same company when we were both just starting out. I remember our first meeting clearly. I was having trouble with the copier, and Jacob came over with a grin. Need some help with that? He teased. I smiled and said, I've got it, but thanks. That moment was the beginning of everything. Our work together, falling in love, getting married, and eventually welcoming Kelly into our lives. After Kelly was born, I took some time off to be with her. When I returned to work, I found out that Jacob had been promoted to department head. One evening, while I was going through some work documents at home, Jacob glanced over and said, "You're really into this, huh?" His tone was a bit sharp. I looked up, surprised. "Well, yeah, I love my job, you know that." Jacob shrugged, but there was something in his voice that made me uneasy. "Sure, but don't you think Kelly needs you more right now?" I sighed, knowing where this conversation was headed. "Jacob, we've talked about this. Kelly is doing great, and my mom helps out a lot. I can't just give up my career." The conversation eventually moved on, but his words stayed with me. This wasn't the first time he'd hinted that he wasn't happy with how much I cared about my job. 2 years later, I became a department head too, and Jacob seemed even more unsettled. His once playful jokes at home started to have a harder edge. One day, as I was preparing for a big presentation, Jacob walked into the room. "So, you're presenting to the board today?" he asked. I nodded, focused on my notes. "Yeah, it's a big opportunity for me." Jacob leaned against the doorframe, his voice laced with sarcasm. "Just don't forget who you're coming home to. Don't let this job take over your life, Laura." I stopped and looked up at him. "Jacob, what's that supposed to mean?" He waved his hand dismissively. "Nothing, just be careful, that's all." But it was obvious that it meant more than nothing. Jacob's attitude towards my career had shifted from being supportive to something more resentful, something I never expected from him. I fell in love on a Thursday evening, the kind where the sky turns orange and pink as the sun sets, peaceful outside but tense inside. We were sitting at the dinner table, with Kelly happily chatting about her day at school, offering a brief break from the unspoken tension between Jacob and me. "Mommy, look." Kelly beamed, holding up a crayon drawing of a woman in a suit. "I drew you at work. You look like a superhero." I smiled, touched by her sweet gesture. "That's amazing, sweetie. Thank you." Jacob glanced at the drawing over Kelly's shoulder, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "That's nice, Kelly, but remember, the most important job for mommy is here with us." My smile faded as frustration began to build. "Jacob, I think it's important for Kelly to know that her mom can have a career and still be there for her family," I said, trying to stay calm. Jacob sighed and put down his fork. "I just think you're taking on too much, Laura. Kelly needs you." I was about to respond when the phone rang, interrupting the growing tension. Jacob answered, and I immediately recognized the sharp, insistent voice on the other end. It was his mother, Julie. "Hello, Mom." "Yes, she's here." "I know, but..." Jacob's voice sounded a mix of resignation and frustration. I strained to hear Julie's words. "Jacob, you need to put your foot down. Tell Laura to slow down with her work. It's not good for Kelly or your marriage." Jacob's response was quieter, but his words still hurt. "I agree, Mom. I've tried talking to her, but she won't listen." "Yes, I'll try again." He hung up, and I couldn't hold back any longer. "Was that your mother telling you to get me to quit my job?" Jacob ran a hand through his hair, looking exasperated. "She's just worried, Laura. She thinks you should focus more on Kelly and less on work, and honestly, I can't say I disagree." I clenched my fists under the table, feeling anger surge through me. So now your mother is telling me how to manage my career? Jacob, I'm not just Kelly's mother or your wife. I have my own dreams. Jacob abruptly stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. And what about my dreams, Laura? Isn't it enough that I'm working hard to provide for us? I stood up too, my heart pounding. I'm contributing too, Jacob. Why can't you see that I can handle both my career and our family? He shook his head and let out a bitter laugh. Because every time you try to balance both, our family ends up suffering. With that, he stormed out of the kitchen, leaving me there, angry and frustrated. The tension at home was at its peak, but I had no idea that work was about to complicate things even more. It was a clear Monday morning when the director of our company called Jacob and me into his office. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation as we sat down. Laura, Jacob, I'm sure you're both aware of the upcoming vacancy for the operations manager position, he began, looking between us. Jacob nodded eagerly, a gleam in his eye. Yes, we've heard about it. The director leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. Well, I wanted to speak with both of you because you're on the short list for the promotion. It's a tough decision, you're both highly qualified. I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness, but before I could say anything, Jacob jumped in. That's great to hear, but I think it's obvious who the better fit is. I mean, with my experience. I cut him off, my voice steady. Actually, I believe I have just as much to offer. My recent projects have significantly boosted our department's performance. The director raised his hand, signaling us to calm down. I appreciate both of your inputs. We'll make a decision in the coming weeks. Best of luck to you both. As we left the office, Jacob was clearly angry. Once we were alone in the elevator, he turned to me, his voice low and harsh. Laura, you should back out of this. I deserve this promotion. I looked at him, stunned. Why should I step down? I've worked just as hard as you, if not harder. Jacob's jaw tightened. Because I'm the man of the house. It's my job to be the provider. I shook my head, disbelief washing over me. Jacob, this isn't the 1945s. I have every right to go for this promotion. We exited the elevator, our footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. Jacob stopped and turned to me. This isn't just about the job, Laura. It's about our family. You're already stretched thin. Think about Kelly. I felt a surge of frustration. I am thinking about Kelly. I want to show Kelly that her mother is strong and capable, that she can achieve anything she sets her mind to. Jacob scoffed. Fine, but if you get this promotion, don't expect things to stay the same between us. His words were a clear threat, sending a chill down my spine. This wasn't just about a job. It was about respect and equality in our relationship. That evening, the tension at home continued. Jacob's mother called, and her disappointment was evident. Laura, I can't believe you're considering this. You need to let Jacob have this opportunity. It's the right thing to do for your family. Her words only strengthened my resolve. Julie, with all due respect, this is a decision for Jacob and me to make. I won't step down just because Jacob thinks he's entitled to the position. After hanging up, I looked over at Kelly, who was playing with her dolls, unaware of the conflict around her. I silently promised myself that I would stand my ground. This promotion was more than just a job. It was a statement that I deserved recognition and respect. But the stress from both the promotion battle and the tension at home began to wear me down. I started feeling unusually tired, my mind wasn't as sharp, and I struggled to focus. One morning, while trying to prepare breakfast, everything felt overwhelming. Kelly, can you please get your backpack? We're running late, I called out, my voice lacking its usual energy. Kelly, ever so observant, looked at me with concern. Mommy, are you okay? You look really tired. I forced a smile, not wanting to worry her. I'm fine, honey, just a bit tired. Things weren't much better at work. My performance was slipping, and it didn't go unnoticed. One afternoon, my boss, Mr. William, called me into his office. His expression was a mix of concern and professionalism. Laura, is everything okay? Your work lately hasn't been up to your usual standard, he said gently but firmly. I sighed, feeling a mix of embarrassment and frustration. I'm sorry, Mr. William. I've just not been feeling well lately. I'm not sure what's wrong. He leaned back in his chair, considering my words. I understand, but you know this is a critical time for the department, especially with the promotion on the line. Do you think you can manage your responsibilities? I nodded, though doubt started to creep in. Yes, I can. I just need a couple of days to get back on track. As I left his office, my mind raced with worry. What if this illness cost me the promotion? What if Jacob was right about me taking on too much? When I got home, Jacob was there, and his reaction was the last thing I needed. You look terrible, Laura. Maybe this is a sign that you should step down from the promotion race. His words hurt, and I snapped. No, Jacob. I'm just not feeling well. This has nothing to do with the job. He shrugged, with a hint of satisfaction in his voice. Well, if you can't handle the pressure, maybe it's for the best. I turned away, feeling a mix of anger and helplessness. I decided to take a few days off, hoping rest would help me recover. But instead of getting better, my condition worsened. The fatigue and brain fog wouldn't go away. One evening, I was lying on the couch, with Kelly sitting beside me, coloring. Mommy, don't be sad. I'll make you feel better, she said with her innocent, sweet voice. I smiled weakly. Thank you, sweetie. Mommy just needs to rest a bit. But as days passed, my health didn't improve. I started worrying that something more serious was going on. My time at home increased, curled up on the sofa with a blanket, feeling exhausted all the time. Kelly, my sweet daughter, tried her best to cheer me up, her innocent attempts at playing doctor both heartwarming and heartbreaking. One evening, as I lay there, Kelly came up to me with a serious look on her face. Mommy, I'm going to make you all better, she declared, holding her toy stethoscope. I managed a weak smile. Oh, is Dr. Kelly in the house? Yes, and I have just the thing for you, she said, running off to her room. She returned with a small, colorful pill in her hand. Here, Mommy, this will make you feel better. Daddy said it's a special vitamin. I froze, the pill in her tiny fingers sending alarm bells ringing in my head. Kelly, where did you get this from? She looked up at me, her eyes wide and innocent. From Daddy's room. He gives me one every day to put in your food. He said it's a secret game. My heart pounded in my chest. Kelly, sweetie, this is very important. Can you show me where you got these pills from? She nodded, taking my hand and leading me to Jacob's bedside drawer. I found a small bottle of pills that I didn't recognize. I hugged Kelly tightly, a deep sense of dread washing over me. Jacob's recent behavior, my strange symptoms, and now it was too much to be a coincidence. Kelly, thank you for showing me this. You're such a good girl, I said, trying to hide the turmoil inside me. After tucking her into bed, I took the bottle of pills and locked myself in the bathroom. My hands shook as I looked up the imprints on the pills online. The search results sent a chill down my spine. They were strong prescription medication, not vitamins. I sat on the bathroom floor, the reality sinking in. Jacob had been giving me these pills, pretending it was a game with our daughter. But why? What was he trying to do? The pieces were starting to come together, revealing something much darker than I had imagined. This wasn't just about the promotion or our marital issues, it was something far more sinister. With the bottle of pills and a heart full of dread, I knew I needed solid evidence before confronting Jacob. The next morning, I made an appointment with my doctor, pretending it was just a routine checkup. Sitting in the doctor's office, I showed him the pills. Doctor, I found these, and I think I've been unknowingly taking them. Can you tell me what they are? The doctor examined the pills, his brow furrowing. Laura, these are strong medications, not something to be taken lightly. How have you been feeling lately? I described my symptoms: the fatigue, confusion, and general unwellness. He nodded, taking notes. We'll do some blood work right away. If these pills are causing your symptoms, it will show up in the tests. A couple of days later, the test results confirmed my worst fears. The medication was in my system, and it was causing my symptoms. I felt a mix of relief and horror: relief that I wasn't imagining things, and horror at the thought of my husband's betrayal. I looked at the doctor, dread washing over me. Can these be bought over the counter without a prescription? He shook his head, his expression serious. Absolutely not. These are strong prescription medications. They can be very harmful if taken without proper medical supervision. His words hit me hard. This wasn't just Jacob acting alone. His mother, Julie, a pharmacist, must be involved too. It was a chilling realization. The three people I had trusted were conspiring against me, using their knowledge and access to harm me. I thanked the doctor and left his office, my mind racing. The drive home was a blur. I was in shock, struggling to understand the depth of the betrayal. Jacob and his mother had crossed a line that I couldn't even imagine. At home, I sat in the living room, the test results and the bottle of pills on the coffee table in front of me. The pieces of the puzzle were fitting together, creating a picture so dark and unthinkable that it shook me to my core. I knew I had to confront them, to face the truth, but first, I needed to make sure Kelly was safe. I called my mother and asked her to take Kelly for a few days, using work stress as an excuse. Once Kelly was safely with my mother, I planned the confrontation. I needed them to admit what they had done. I needed to know why. How could they betray me like this? How could they use Kelly, an innocent child, in their twisted game? The next day, I called Jacob and Julie, asking them to meet at Julie's house. My voice was calm, but inside, I was a storm of emotions: anger, betrayal, but most of all, determination. I was going to expose their deceit and protect myself and my daughter, no matter what it took. The drive to Julie's house felt like the longest of my life. Each mile seemed to stretch out forever. When I parked outside, my heart was pounding, and I gripped the steering wheel tightly. I took a deep breath, stepped out of the car, and grabbed the bottle of pills and the medical report from my bag. I knocked on the door, and Julie opened it with a fake smile. "Laura, dear, come in." "What's this about?" she asked. Jacob was sitting in the living room, his expression a mix of worry and defiance. I didn't waste any time. "Jacob, Julie, I know about the pills," I began, my voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside me. Jacob's face turned pale. "What pills, Laura?" he asked, trying to sound innocent. I pulled out the bottle and placed it firmly on the coffee table. "These pills, the ones you've been giving me through Kelly. My test results show they're the reason for my illness." Julie's eyes widened, and her fake smile faded. "Laura, this is a misunderstanding. Why would we do something like that?" Her voice was shaky, but her words didn't ring true. "It's no misunderstanding, Julie. These are prescription drugs, and as a pharmacist, you would have easy access to them." Jacob stood up, his fists clenched. "Laura, you're blowing this out of proportion. I was just trying to level the playing field for the promotion." I stared at him in disbelief. "By poisoning me? By using our daughter in your scheme?" Julie jumped in, her voice now desperate. "Jacob was just worried about his career. He didn't mean any harm." I shook my head, anger rising inside me. "That's not an excuse. You both put my life in danger and used Kelly to do it. That's unforgivable." Jacob's face showed guilt. "Laura, I'm sorry. I didn't think it would go this far." Julie started to cry, her hands trembling. Please, Laura, we can fix this. Don't break up our family over this. But it was too late for apologies. This is beyond fixing, Julie. I'm going to the police. What you did is a crime. Jacob reached out, his voice panicked. Laura, wait. Think about what this will do to Kelly. I pulled away, my decision firm. I am thinking about Kelly. That's why I can't let you get away with this. She deserves better. Leaving them in shocked silence, I walked out of the house, determined to protect my daughter and myself from further harm. After leaving Julie's house, I went straight to the police station, my hands shaking as I held the evidence. The investigation moved quickly. Jacob and Julie were brought in for questioning, and the evidence against them was overwhelming. They were charged with poisoning, and a trial was scheduled. The day of the trial was tense. I sat in the courtroom, my hands clenched in my lap, as the prosecutor presented the case against Jacob and Julie. Jacob looked pale, and Julie seemed on the verge of tears. When it was my turn to testify, I took the stand, my voice steady as I recounted the events. I trusted them, and they betrayed me. They used my daughter to poison me. Jacob's lawyer tried to discredit me, suggesting I made up the story for personal gain, but the evidence was clear. In the end, the jury found them guilty. Jacob and Julie were sentenced to prison for their actions. As the judge announced the sentence, I felt a mix of relief and sorrow, relief that justice was served, but sadness for what had happened to my family. After the trial, I focused on rebuilding my life. I was promoted to the open position at work, but it was a bittersweet victory. Kelly and I moved into a new home, ready for a fresh start. One evening, as I tucked Kelly into bed in our new place, she looked up at me with her big, innocent eyes and asked, "Mommy, are you happy now?" I kissed her forehead, feeling a sense of peace. "Yes, sweetheart, we're going to be just fine." And we were. Despite the pain and betrayal, we found strength in each other. I showed Kelly that we could overcome any obstacle and that truth and justice would always win. As I turned off the light and left her room, I knew this was just the beginning of our new journey, a journey of healing, new opportunities, and, most importantly, hope. Our future was uncertain, but I was determined to make it bright for both Kelly and myself.